Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment today, we are going to discuss all about the turmoil in Cuba. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. So let's begin with the topics of discussion that we are going to look at. First of all, we will talk about the news. We will also cover the current scenario. Then we will discuss about brief history of Cuba along with specific geographical features of it. We will talk about India and Cuba relations. We will also discuss about the challenges to the current scenario, the way forward to it. And in the last of the segment, I'm going to ask you a mains-based question for answer writing practice. So let's begin about first topic, our first segment, that is, why is it in the news? Now, Cuba is witnessing the largest anti-government protest in the last 3 decades. This is definitely the biggest anti-government protest. Now, freedom, if we talk about the slogan of it, it's freedom. The protesters are asking for freedom and asking for the president, Miguel Diaz, to step down. Let's talk about the scenario. What's actually happening there is thousands of people in the small island nation of Cuba. They have come to the streets to protest against the deteriorating conditions in Cuba and, of course, asking the communist regime to step down. Why is it happening? This is happening because of the collapsing economy. Cuba's economy has suffered a lot since 2020 when the Trump administration put sanctions on Cuba. After that, the people there, they lost a lot of employment opportunities. They also lost and did not get a hold of the basic needs as well. Even food such as rice, it came to be scarce. After that, we of course have the government's pathetic handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and shortage of food and lack of some basic medicines. Now, if we talk about Cuba, Cuba has been under a communist regime since the last 6 decades. And this might be one of the reasons that an all-powerful government is unable to handle the current crises. Moving on, if we talk about US, the US has actually showed support. The Biden administration has showed support to the protesters in their clarion for freedom, whereas the Cuban government is saying that US propaganda has deep roots even in the innocent and genuine protesters. They have been, quote unquote, manipulated through the social media of the US and US mercenaries. So this is the entire scenario right now. If we look at this news piece, Cuba, which could keep the infection rates very low last year, did not do it right now. If we talk about this current year, it's reporting 4,000 cases per million, and there is only a population of 11 million in Cuba. Although most of them have been vaccinated, approximately 1 million have been fully vaccinated, but as of course the infection rate is rising and it is one of the most infectious countries right now, island countries, this is a cause of concern. Although Cuba has developed the world's first conjugate vaccine for COVID-19, the Soberana. I'm going to write it here for you. Soberana. That means sovereignty. It's a 3-dose vaccine. Soberana 1, 2 and Soberana Plus. So there is one more 3-dose vaccine, that is Abdala. Okay? And it has shown the efficacy of approximately 91.2% in the late 3rd stage clinical trials. And now it is, if we talk about the current status, en masse it is executing this plan. So if this actually proves to be as efficient as it is saying, this could be the first ever vaccine in the Latin Americas to be developed homegrown. Because if we talk about Cuba, it's not importing vaccines actually. So let's see what's happening ahead. Let's talk about Cuba. Cuba is an island country which is the east of Yucatan in Mexico, west of Hispaniola, south of the US states of Florida and also the Bahamas, north of Cayman Islands and Jamaica. It is situated where the Caribbean Sea as well the Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic Sea meets. And a very important, very much in news island country is situated here, that is the Haiti. So, as you can see, it is a group of archipelago, and so many protests are happening here because of its regime. The regime is unable to take care of its own people. So let's move on and talk about brief history of Cuba. It was a colony of Spain until the Spanish-American War of 1898. Also, in 1940, a coup and subsequent dictatorship under Fulgencio Batista in 52 occurred. After 1959, this was there till 1959. And then the 26th of July movement, which afterwards established communist rule under the leadership of Fidel Castro. And then since 1965, the state has been governed by the Communist Party of Cuba. The country was a point of contention during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the US, and a nuclear war nearly broke out during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. In 2019, a new constitution was approved, which officially recognizes the right to private property, while also reassuring the central government's authority over the regulation of production and land. And if we talk about the current scenario, the Cuban government is saying that we will allow private companies and private sectors to get indulged into where it was never allowed before. The economic reforms which were promised in the August 2020 are still not showing enough results. Since the imposition of the sanction in 2020 under the administration of Donald Trump, the economy shrunk by 11%. The GDP of Cuba is $100 billion. The per capita GDP is approximately $8,000. So we can, of course, talk about the economic deterioration, which is extreme in Cuba. And whenever there is a vacuum of such might, it is very easy for protests to erupt. Moving ahead, let's talk about Indian and Cuban relations. If we talk from the political perspective, India was amongst the first countries to give recognition to Cuba after the 1959 revolution. United Nations, Non-Aligned Movement, World Trade Organization are certain platforms where India and Cuba, they continue to engage. Also, India has been supporting Cuba against US-supported resolutions at the UN Human Rights Council, and also asking for the US government a resolution in the UN. Through that, it's asking the US government to uplift sanctions so that economy can, of course, proliferate there and not be deteriorating. Also, if we talk about Cuba, it supports India's inclusion as a permanent member in the restructured United Nations Security Council. Cuba has also joined the ISA, International Solar Alliance, which was established in 2015 during Conference of Parties 21, or of course the Paris Accord. This is an initiative of India and France. If we talk about the economic perspective, USD, that is US dollars 38.81 million, is the trade relation. This is the amount of trade relation quantifiable with Cuba of India. And of course, recently there were many agreements signed in the field of biotechnology, homeopathy, and the traditional system of medicine during the visit of President of India to Cuba in 2019. India provides development assistance to Cuba in various sectors, and in January 2019 made a donation of 60 tractors with accessories, medicines and medical equipment to the island. If we talk about cultural relation, there are many. Cuba is very fond of yoga and Vipassana meditation. They have also a lot of interest in Ayurveda and Indian naturopathy. Rabindranath Tagore's birth anniversary in Cuba is celebrated there every year. In May 2007, a bust of Rabindranath Tagore, donated by the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, was unveiled in Old Havana. There is a bust of Mahatma Gandhi and the statue of Mother Teresa in Havana, the capital of Cuba. Cuba also celebrates International Day of Yoga, Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birth anniversary, and 550th anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev. There are many challenges. First is the COVID-19 crisis. Cuba, which was able to put a check on the infection rate, on the infectivity of COVID-19 in the first year of its outbreak, probably, but in the second year it is not being seen so. Also, economic problems are a lot. As I told you, if there is an economic vacuum, when people will not have proper employment opportunities, they will of course resort to some other sort of earning capacities such as theft, murders, robbery, and wherever there is a vacuum of economic shortage, any vacuum of such might will be of course plugged in with the help of radicalization. Unemployed youth are very prone to radicalization. They can be radicalized on the greed of extra money. And of course, a country such as Cuba is seeing that. Also, state suppression. Because protests which are violent in nature, the government of Cuba is coming at it with a heavy hand, leading to loss of lives and property. If we talk about the way forward, the first way forward we need to see is a united and concerted approach which needs to be in the minds of the neighboring island archipelagos and countries as well, because whatever disturbances are there in Cuba will of course proliferate in the nearby regions, causing refugees to flee and die in the process. Also, role of the UN. Many countries are a part of the United Nations. Cuba being a part of the United Nations can be approached in a very diplomatic manner to keep its internal matters in check. Also, soft power execution. From the perspective of India, India enjoys so mighty cultural relations with Cuba that India can use its soft power as a tool to talk to the president of Cuba in order to understand the plight of their own people. So, let's move on to our mains-based question. Kindly pay attention to this. You have to analyze the current ongoings in Cuba and also suggest how the global community should mitigate the volatile scenario. You have to write it in 250 words. So, that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.